My presentation today is called Conversing with Ease. What I have to do, I've actually, the Toastmasters involves a manual, the Competent Communicator Manual, where you have 10 speech projects. When you finish, you move on to more specialized speeches. And I finished my Competent Communicator. I'm now doing Interpersonal Communication. And the first project in this booklet is called Conversing with Ease, where I will talk about conversations, types of conversations, and I will actually proceed to have a scene where we will enact a conversation, and then we'll have a discussion about what I did within the scene, whether it was right, if I need to improve on something. You will all participate and give me some feedback on what I did. So I will begin with my speech. Okay. Have you ever been in a situation where a good friend of yours calls you and says, "It's my wedding, and I'm inviting you to the party, and you have to be there, I will be waiting for you." And you're very enthusiastic, you say, "Of course I'll be there, definitely, I'll come." And then you hang up and realize, I know this person, I know her very well, but I don't know any of her friends and family. What am I going to do now, going there, sitting with people I do not know? So you walk into the party, and you actually have to introduce yourself to a member of their family. They take you to a table, and you have to sit with at least 10 people that you don't know. So what are you going to do in that situation? I will tell you, actually, the way to solve this is conversation, to have a good conversation. And I would say that when we do conversation, when we say the word conversation, it's something that we think about. It's something that we do naturally within our life, whether at work, at school, even in the streets with our family and friends, everywhere. But we never actually stop and think what conversation actually involves. Toastmasters actually lets you think about all aspects of communication, including conversation. And the power of conversation actually comes from the fact that it is something that is very in your face. Among the various ways of communication, conversation is probably the clearest. If you talk about body language, facial expressions, even tone of voice, this could be interpreted differently. Whether you're a man or a woman, depending on the motive of your conversation, your background, your culture, it could be interpreted in one way, it could be interpreted in a totally different way. But communication, even though it could also be interpreted in different ways, conversation is probably the clearest. So when you have a conversation, there are actually various levels of conversation. Level 1 is the small talk, where you actually talk about general things, the weather, things that are around you. And when you do small talk, you are actually seizing the person in front of you and deciding whether you want to continue on with the conversation with them. If you do decide to continue, you move on to level 2. Level 2 is about fact disclosure. You're talking about your work, about your hobbies, about your activities. You feel more comfortable, you proceed. You talk, you go on to level 3, and level 3 is a very tricky part. It's about opinions. You begin to disclose your opinions. It could be about politics, about maybe things like that. And I would say it's tricky because in our country these times, a lot of conversations do end at level 3 with a fight. But moving on, if you're still at ease, you can move on to level 4, which is personal feelings. You begin to disclose personal feelings. And a good relationship and a good conversation actually starts at level 1 and moves on until it reaches level 4. It could, of course, not reach, it could stop at a certain point. And by the time you get to that, you're probably good friends with the person. So, are there things that we can do to improve our conversation skills? Of course, conversation is just like any other way of communication. It's something if you work on, if you know and focus on certain things, you get to actually improve it. So what do? Well, the first thing is to find out more about the person you are talking to. Try to find, if they're a friend of your friends, try to ask your friend about them. If they're a colleague, try to ask about what kind of work they do and find out. But be aware, because sometimes if it's someone new and you have more information than you should have on them, it could be a bit creepy to them. The second thing is to ask questions about their work, about their activities, about general things. And when you actually do that, try to find a point of interest between you and them, so that the conversation will actually be fulfilling to you and you want to continue on with it. The third thing is to listen. Make eye contact, nod, say yes. Try to show people that you're actually listening to them, because that will actually show them a bit of respect. And when they finish, try to maybe use some of the words they said or paraphrase it in a different way, because it shows respect, and also it gives you space to maybe ask something about something you heard. The third thing, this is actually the fourth thing. And the fourth thing involves to consider before disagreeing. If the point is not very important, try not to disagree. Just let it go. And when disagreeing, if you are going to disagree, maybe try before disagreeing just agreeing with something they said. Try not to be very argumentative. And if you feel that there is a bit of silence and you're running out of things to say, don't panic, that's okay. You can still do that. Silence is a good chance to recuperate and maybe think of what they said and open a new field of conversation and ask something new. Also, it could be that if the conversation is not going very well, it might not be really your fault. It could be that the other person is not really participating with you. They might be distracted or unhappy, that they are not listening well or participating well. So it could be okay still. And you also have to know when the conversation is over, not to just go on talking. You have to smile, maybe nod and say something nice, and then end the conversation with a good impression. You also need to take care of the tone of voice. Don't speak too loudly or to speak too softly, because this could irritate your listener. And then at the end, the last thing I will tell you is a conversation is something quite interactive between you and the person you are speaking to. So do not think that by dominating the conversation, this is a good way of having a conversation. I would say that by following one or more of these tips, you will probably have a good conversation. But again, I would say you need to practice. You need to take care whenever you're talking to someone. Just notice what you're doing. Are you concentrating on things you need to concentrate on? And by working on that, you will actually eventually get to the point where you would have a good conversation. So now I will begin with my scene. The scene actually involves myself and Lubna. I don't know her, and we're meeting at Nermeen's birthday. Nermeen is a common friend. So things to concentrate on when we're having small talk. The first thing is to think about is to have a positive attitude. You should tell yourself that I'm an interesting person, other people are quite interesting, I may have something to add to them and they may have something to add to me. So I would say that this is quite a thing to think about when you're having small talk with someone you don't know. Also, you might want to start your conversation with the immediate surroundings or things around you. Then you need to listen and start asking questions about what you hear. You can also pay a compliment, or you can ask open-ended questions. So these are the tips for small talk. Now we will move on to enact the scene. Okay. Is this chair taken? No, you can sit.
Can you sit on the other side? I think.
Music is too loud. My ears are hurting really.
Yeah, no, I like loud music. It's kind of my thing.
Really?
Yes.
What kind of music do you like?
Oh, I like all kind of music. I'm one of those person who listens to music according to my mood. So if I'm having a good mood, I listen to a happy song, and if my mood is not so, I listen to depressing songs.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds nice. I actually like songs as well, but I'm more into good and happy songs. Even if I'm not happy, I like to hear happy songs because they lift up my mood.
They don't irritate you?
No, not really.
No.
It's kind of fun.
No, they usually irritate me. If I'm sad and I listen to a happy song, it's just annoying.
How do you know Nermeen?
We've been friends for like 3 years. I met her at Toastmasters.
Oh really? What's Toastmasters? I heard her talk a lot about it, but I never actually concentrated to ask her.
She didn't tell you about it?
No.
She should have. It's a public speaking club. We talk about presentations and public speaking. It's very interesting. You should come to a meeting.
Oh really?
Yes, we're having a meeting next Wednesday
Oh, at what time?
at 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. I think that's a good time.
Yeah, well, we usually make sure that almost everyone is done with their work, so, and they just, went home, had lunch, and then they have time to come.
Yeah. But then the streets are very crowded these days. Can people come make it at 7? Do you start at 7 sharp?
We try to. That's all I can say. We live in Egypt, so we try to start on time, but, Egyptian timing not very well at that.
I know. I mean, I find it really difficult to go to any place now. With traffic like that, very, very difficult.
You just have to give yourself like 30 minutes heads up. Like if you have an appointment at 6:30 and the street is going to take you 30 minutes, so you go at 5:30. Give yourself an hour.
Oh, that means I have to just finish work and go. I finish work at 5:30.
Where do you work?
I actually work in Zizinia. We have an office for a company that sells electrical panel boards. So we have our office there. I think it will take me about, maybe a little bit than an hour to get there.
Yes, I think you should just wrap up your work and then come. We actually try to be there early, so if anyone comes early, we're there. So you just have to drop by.
Yeah, I think I'll do that. I'll ask Nermina when time comes. I'll ask her a day before, just to make sure that meeting does start, and you're going to have to hold a meeting and start it on time.
Sure. Or you can check our Facebook.
Oh, you do have Facebook?
Yes, we have a Facebook page.
Okay, and you're a friend of Nermine, so I'll find you in her
Yes.
on her friend list.
Yes, sure.
Okay, so I'll add you.
Oh, you can do that.
Okay.
And then I'll send you all the details about Toastmasters.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you. Nice
You're
to meet
welcome.
you.
Thank
I have to
you.
go now.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So this is the part where we get to discuss a bit about the scene, and you can give us some feedback and about whether we were able to carry the conversation well. The small topic is not that we have some feedback. I'd be happy to hear. So you have 15 minutes.
I like this conversation.
A friendly, natural. Okay. So you thought I did what I was supposed to do? Okay.
I think that the nodding and the smiles and everything gives good impression from the person in front of you, and it makes him like interested to talk with you. So this is a very good notice that you give us to us, and it's very important.
The slippery part about she likes all kinds of music. She was trying to.
Well, I had 2 to 3 minutes?
Yeah.
3 to 5 minutes? 3 to 5 minutes for a conversation, so I needed to fill the space.
I was waiting for the airline.
No, Beat's good. Beat's okay.
I wonder why you ask me about my name.
I think I forgot. It's very true. I was very occupied with the acting part.
I think, can I say one thing? I think that you did not start with the conversation with the boring conversations like talking about the weather, because we always, all the time, when you start a conversation with someone, the first thing that comes to your mind, which is very boring by the way, is that you talk about the weather or the traffic. So both are, very boring topics to start to start talking with someone with these 2 topics. So it's very nice that you started with the music and the atmosphere around you. It's very interesting.
And you showed interest in speech and the details, and that sounds very, very nice.
And I really like the smile and the nice body language.
Especially the part about the Egyptian and timing, they don't mix. I like this one.
Toastmaster and a friend on Facebook. This
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, okay.